Hello everyone and welcome to a very high level match of Beyond All Reason. Today we're taking a look at a very brand new map that just hit the battlefield. Goes by the name of Salt Reef version 0.9. Guess not even the final version right there, so that's cool to see. And we're going to be seeing exactly what these commanders can do on this map that looks a little bit familiar to that one Theta Crystal. It's called Theta Crystals. There's a map called something Crystals. It kind of reminds me of this one. But anyway, spawning all the way on the southern corner, the southeastern corner here, and representing the blue team as a Cortex commander, going into a couple of solar panels right now because that wind speed is atrocious. Goes by the name of Hellhound. So Hellhound, or no, sorry, not Hellhounds, Hell's Hound, singular. Gonna be showing us what they've got here. 49 true skill, a little silver tail as well, gonna be holding down the southern line. We'll get into the map layout here and what I think about it right after we meet our red team leader. Going right up against the blue, it's going to be neck and neck as far as the blue team is concerned. Not a yin-yang match, just a head-to-head brawl, I guess you could suppose. Goes by the name of Snoopa here. 47 true skill and likewise little silver tail of a chevron hiding in the back there, but not the commander. Going to be right up on the front line and showing us what exactly this Armada commander has to do. So, interesting things about this map, I do have to say. I like this big middle section where there's these water ponds, right, making it very difficult for bots and vehicles to traverse here. I'm guessing that it's too deep for vehicles or bots to go through. Maybe, yeah, T3 probably is not going to have as big of an issue, but the T1 and T2 certainly means that maybe hovercraft are going to have a place to play around in this matchup. It'll be a bit tricky, it'll be a bit finicky, but yeah, maybe we'll see a couple of hovercraft coming out here in maybe a cheeky build here and there. It also means that these high grounds right here are very nice. Rocket spiders, I can imagine being very, very annoying, climbing up over those hills and barraging some of these metal extractors. By the way, speaking of metal extractors, looks like we're 2.0 all the way across the board here. I don't see anything, yeah, too much more than that, or any more than that. Yeah, all 2.0s as far as I can see. So that's always nice. Angry Strawberry, transporting her commander up to this high ground to try and claim these metal extractors. In some sense, this is an excellent move because it's going to be really difficult to besiege this area, right? So without knowing exactly what's up here, it's going to be really, I mean, obviously you know where the metal extractors are going to be, but other than that, it's really hard to get vision over here aside from an air player doing a nice little scout or anything like that. So putting some metal extractors up here is definitely a very safe way to expand your economy. A little bit of a lack of aggression so far. It feels like we've just kind of gotten to know the map here. We've just sort of waited for the map to come up and running. But it does look like eventually Skag is going to break the silence here and try, at the very least, send a couple of ticks across. The grunt is spotted right here from Strawberry, though, and I think will be more than enough to thwart the advances of these ticks that have already tried to make their way across the map right here. Other important things, of course, are all these crystals, which are valuable. They hold a whole bunch of energy inside of them. I wonder if there's any metal. Switching to the metal vision, sometimes it takes a second to kick in, so I'll just leave that running. Hopefully we get an update on that sooner or later. That or it means that there's no metal in these rocks. Sometimes they put a little metal in the rocks, or in the crystals, but it doesn't look like, particularly on this map, that is the case. Interesting, there's no metal extractor up there. I really feel like there should be. Almost looks like the spot where you'd hide a little metal extractor, right? Up on that hillside, maybe a valuable one. Something like that. I guess not looking to give that commander that advantage, though. Either way, no aggression has been done on either side of the map here. Nicely held, I suppose, by the red team down on the southern side. The Sticks tried to get a little bit aggressive down there, didn't manage to, and all is going to be well right now. Skag actually went for 2 anti-air bots, which is quite interesting. I guess to prevent Shuriken from pushing pretty far forward. Yeah, those Cortex T1 air units can be quite troublesome to deal with, so I guess I don't blame the green commander there, the neon green commander, for going for just a couple of those anti-air bots, just to make sure that they shoot down any of those Shuriken. Not to mention also, we may have scouted that Strawberry was transported over here in those transports, also very vulnerable to anti-air fire. Could certainly mean that, yeah, maybe we're gunning for catching a commander mid-air. Always a delectable feast to catch a commander falling out of the skies, gracing your sector of the map with 1.25 thousand metal. A lot of vehicles out here, and I'm not really surprised by it. The vehicle's obviously going to be very powerful in these big flat open terrains where they have no impedance to their tracked or tired movement abilities here. Bot's going to be a little bit harder to keep up with the vehicles with. Not going to be the end of the world, though. Of course, you pay for those vehicles with a whole lot more metal. Finally, a little bit of action here. Looks like the grunts from Fiddler have decided to get into a little bit of a scuffle against Swellington over here. What a foul, phallic-sounding name right there, Swellington. Not sure I appreciate the way that one rolls off the tongue as I do some of the others. But at the very least, the brown player here for the red team is going to be holding their own, regardless of my thoughts on their name. Yeah, building a couple of those LLTs to fortify the line, going to be a great fallback point for any of those units to go back to, but we do already have the aggravators out and on the front line right here for Fiddlers, so getting those LLTs up is only a temporary measure, and at the very least it'll forestall those aggravators pushing in here. But even once those get into decent enough numbers, it's not even really going to matter here. Likewise on the southern side, it's a big old bot battle, and I'm pretty surprised by that, actually. I really felt like we were going to go into a whole lot more vehicles, but I guess everybody on the southern side of the red and blue team both deciding that they're just a little bit more comfortable with those bots. And I can't blame them. I also am a lot more comfortable with those bots. Of course, despite the vehicles having an advantage on big open terrain, it does come down a little bit to preference, right? Having those res bots is so handy, and especially some of the higher tier players I've noticed can be so proficient with the bots and the res bots specifically, keeping their armies alive with proper micro, that it really narrows that advantage that vehicles, pardon me, rather, have over the bots. Oftentimes that advantage can disappear in the blink of an eye as a couple too many vehicles go down, the res bots get to work, and eventually one player is left with a whole lot more units than the other. And at the end of the day, it's the age-old RTS problem, or adage maybe. More units beats less units. More stuff beats less stuff. These ticks are being encircled by a happy-go-lucky spectator here. I'll try and clear that. Looks like they're not quite done yet. One day or another, I'll try and clear that off. Yeah, Blitz is trying to get a little bit aggressive over here on this side. I think the LLT and especially the Commander's D-Gun going to be enough of a disincentive against those early onset rapid fire plasma tanks sent out by Kaylee up here. Gonna have to be careful with those. Our Lavender Commander is. Those blitzes are fickle. They can disappear in a single moment, and it's really easy to underestimate how much of an expense that really is. Couple of blitzes go down here and there, you don't think too much of it, but 4, 5, 6 of them go down, and it's an easy couple hundred of metal that's already thrown away. It can start to add up really, really quickly. So where are the res bots? There's one of them. Yeah, there we go. He's setting a big old repair command. Gonna focus on the Commander here. That's definitely not the priority target. Commander could also repair. I forget about that all the time, but yeah, Commander could certainly repair, and wouldn't be the wrong idea here to patch up a whole bunch of these aggravators. Oh, they're taking heavy hits. Yeah, those Rocketeers are forced to back down right here from Snoopa. Just doesn't have the material right now. Instead went for a vehicle ad that's slowly but surely pumping out some of those Janus tanks. Janus tanks, don't get me wrong, they can be extremely powerful on the front lines, but the aggravators are being used perfectly right here. Love the control from Hellshound, absolutely demonstrating exactly what you want to do with these. You dip them into combat, let them fire, and pull them back. Essentially the same thing you want to do with the Janus, but the Rocketeers, the aggravators, they'll have the exact same advantage as over the Janus, which is the fact that they can outrange it. Likewise for the Pounder, by the way, in case you're going up against the Cortex Commander and you need the right unit for the job. The Rocketeer is definitely the right unit. Now the Thug and the Mace both work as well. It's just that sometimes they can have a little bit of a hard time bundling up and bunching up, and oftentimes they'll get caught on one another. And sometimes those Januses can still fire, even if you micro fairly decently. You have to be absolutely on point. That's what I'm expecting out of high-level players like this. We're absolutely in the narrowing of the gray zone between the pro leagues here. It's sort of a narrow band that is defined by the people that play it. Not me, by the way. That's not, I know my place, but certainly up there in the 30s, the 40s, not really the 30s, the 40s and the 50s, really where you start to get into those pro players. It seems like the entire bar community has just gotten better overall. And that does tend to mean that the overall OS number goes up, up, up. And so that's why we're seeing these record-breaking highs of 60s. I think I saw a 70 at 1.2. I could be wrong about that, though. Don't quote me. Either way, we're getting up there as far as a record-breaking high. It also has to do with the amount of players that are joining, which is always fabulous to see. Maybe you're a new player and you're watching this video, and maybe it's your first ever game of Beyond All Reason. So to you, I say welcome to your newest, very fond addiction that I'm sure you'll be more than happy to spend hours and hours of your life committed to learning and mastering, as have I. You're in like company. Maybe it's your 100th game you're seeing and you're just here for the thrill once again. Either way, I say welcome to the Brightworks, welcome to Beyond All Reason. I feel like we're growing every day. I've noticed a slow but steady uptick in the views on these videos, and I can't help but correlate that to also the success over this game, right? I feel like there's some sort of a correlation between those two, but I'd be not so bold to claim that it's direct. Anywho, the medium tanks are in significant numbers at this point over here, for especially Link 74, who's got quite a lot of them. We're looking at 9 brutes on the front line right now, which is quite menacing. Those brutes certainly can pack a tremendous wallop. especially once they get into big numbers like this. Now, Zeeberg is in a nice critical position right here. Keeping the Wolverine alive is always nice, but also just the fact that they can dissuade those tanks from pushing in here with those D-guns. Punjiba also similarly D-gunning away any of the tanks that might think about getting a little aggressive here. One brute goes down from that whole engagement. Just goes to show you how efficient those vehicles can be, really. Oh, don't like this, though. Those lashers, they were starting to hit a critical mass right there, and suddenly they just pushed just a millimeter too far on the battlefield. And just like that, all of those lashers did get caught. Now, some amphibious tanks have been built and sent across the map. We'll love to see that. Taking advantage of that little water lane that was unprotected, or largely unprotected. Some LOTs up here, but basically nothing else. Amphibious tanks are resistant to EMP, so that's why these shuriken are having such a hard time. Not to mention they can also shoot up at the shuriken, so might be able to have enough AA power there to actually take those down. It's impressive, to say the very least. Well, okay. I think eventually the shuriken are going to be enough to clean this up, but especially these fiends coming out are going to be plenty in order to shut down these amphibious tanks. Still, though, I believe it was about 6 amphibious tanks went down in order to take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 metal extractors. Definitely worth it in the amount of metal that the red team is going to lose over time right there, but I love that Fiddler is keeping in mind the ways to express a little bit of an advantage here, using some of those guard pikes cleverly to apply a little bit of pressure over here. Love, love, love to see that. Phenomenal. That does, by the way, mark our T2 transition right now for Necromancer, who's gone up to a full-blown T2 lab, T2 production. We have a couple T1 solar panels that could be sacrificed to the gods in order to make just a little bit more production out of this lab, maybe even go into that T2 economy. It's very expensive to afford up front, but the more T2 economy you have, the more T2 economy you can afford. It's a funny problem in the way that it solves itself. Rocketeers push a little too far forward here. Really don't like that. Pounders get within range. That should not be happening right here. Yeah, these Rocketeers are just a little bit too far forward on this engagement, and down they all go. Nice combination of arms right here. Wolverines, Lashers, Pounders, and Grunts, all working in great unison here to provide an overwhelming amount of firepower against Swellington, who's now reduced about in half, I would say, as far as army composition go. These Shuriken might be able to equalize things a little bit here, but those Lasher are going to shoot them down eventually. We'd need to take out the anti-air before those Shuriken could get essentially any work done over here. And I just don't see a way that Swellington's going to do it. Would have to trade out incredibly efficiently. At this point, the line is sort of collapsing here. Fiddler, yeah, expressing a wonderful advantage over here. Skag also trying to push up this mountain by building LLTs. Pushing back Strawberry by throwing up 100 million LLTs up on this hillside. I suppose it works. Also a anti-air turret to make sure that Strawberry cannot retreat. Never back down, never what, chat? Strawberry, meanwhile, happy as can be going up to a T2 economy right here. Not worried about production whatsoever. The only production, quote-unquote, is LOTs to just sort of defend this area, but it's not like that's even, you know, strictly necessary up here. Skag can only build so far up onto this hill. Forward T2 lab. Oh, I'm always so nervous when I see one of these forward T2 labs. It could be really cool. It could also backfire tremendously, and it's really hard to call whether, you know, which way it's going to go. At this point, this is a little bit shaky on this front line. I mean, okay, we're going for 2 forward T2 labs. Would you look at that? That might be the first time I've ever seen that. So we have a forward T2 lab here and a forward T2 lab here. I mean, it works, I guess. I definitely like the advantage here for Skag, who's got his up a whole lot quicker. I also just now noticed that Sad Panda, who is on the red team, is well behind enemy lines. The blue line at this point essentially looking like this. Skag, however, carved out a little yellow nation of his own over here on the right-hand side of it. Sovereign land, I suppose, a sovereign citizen of the blue nation. Not willing to pay taxes or abide by any of their laws here, carving out an existence up in the mountaintops. Not much else, though. I'd love to see maybe a bot lab or vehicle lab come up here just so that we could start shelling away at a lot of this stuff. I mean, you can imagine a couple of shell shockers firing away down into this lower hillside over here. Could be not devastating at this point in the game, but annoying to say the very least here. So maybe an area where Sad Panda could contribute a little bit more. That's not happening, however, because the air lab is still up here and we're going for T2. We got the fusion reactor coming up here. It's all tech all the way up here. So we're worried more so about the tech than expressing any kind of positional advantage here. So the red team is really critically hinging on, yeah, getting a full-blown T2 transition out before the blue team. I just don't see it happening. I mean, T2 is slowly but surely propagating through the blue team. It looks like a lot more of the red is on T2 metal extractors than the blue. So at the very least, oh, Strawberry reclaiming that island, that's quite nice. At the very least, if the red team manages to trade a whole bunch of T1 units, if the red team trades their T2 units for the blue team's T1, it's gonna not really mean anything that the blue team managed to take this much of a forward position right here. This middle of the map position for Fiddler has been wonderful. It's definitely contributed a whole lot of metal here to the Cyan Commander. Still, though, can't help but wonder if maybe T2 units coming out of the labs here from the Tan Commander as well as the Maroon Commander. Oh, Maroon Commander actually eating his lab. Ooh, I don't think it's time for another fusion. I think we desperately need some units on the field. Hounds, Welders, Gunslingers, basically anything out of the T2 gantry that can contribute on this front line. Gonna be necessary here to keep the teammates alive. Whole bunch of Shuriken. But again, there's Whistlers, are there not? Yeah, yeah, two of them. There's two of them. Okay. One of them, a little shaky. Two of them, certainly going to be enough here as all of those, all those Shuriken go down. Definitely not enough critical mass of Shuriken to paralyze all this. Just like that, there's too much pushing through, is there not? I just don't see how Swellington's going to hold this on their own. They desperately need the T2 support right here. Nice run by some of these medium tanks over here, swooping in behind Fiddler 112 here. Could be nice. We have essentially T2, T1 production. We have T2 economy on T1 production over here, which could be quite nice. At the very least, could help shut down some of this with that many medium tanks being pushed out. But the problem with medium tanks is they're so durable. I guess that being said, this is a lot of Pounders and a lot of Wolverines and Lashers, though. The actual number of medium tanks here for the Cyan Commander is relatively low. There's still way too much health, though. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely Swellington going down right here. Gonna need a save from one of his teammates. Very surprised that we saw this Maroon Commander go for a whole nother fusion reactor on the back of this. T2 production could have absolutely saved his teammate, but that second fusion was essentially paid for by his teammate's blood. Meanwhile, T2 units over here. A couple of those rocket spiders firing away, doing a little friendly fire damage. You love to see it. EMP connection does paralyze a significant portion of these Mauser over here. Love the rocket spider here. I think they're an excellent siege option. Arbiter, just as well, going to be firing away from long range. Definitely powerful enough to, blast away some of those Mauser over there. Love to see that. Those Mauser can be really, really dangerous. Eventually, this push does get cleaned up, by the way. Zeeberg is going to absorb the rest of that blow as it headed northward instead of southbound. And I think that essentially cleans all that up. There is a few more medium tanks pushing through over here, though, produced by CBSCH. Not even going to attempt to pronounce that one. I couldn't tell you. Just like that, the T2 lab goes down. My goodness. I really expected the green player to be able to express their T2 advantage just a little bit quicker here, but not the case, as indeed the red team just manages to push through. They have a T2 bot lab and a T2 vehicle lab, both of which pumping out a tremendous amount of firepower right now. Oh, Spybot could be huge. Okay, nice Spybot connection right there. It does paralyze a whole bunch of those Mauser as well as that Bull, which is very expensive on the front, I might add. Whoa, there's still so much firepower in the form of those Sheldon here, though. Hellshound is sacrificing the commander here in an attempt to get rid of that red army, and for what it's worth, it does take it down. Still a couple of Bulls and a single Mauser here, though. There's also some offensive spy bots for the red team. Always going to be lovely for contributing that vision where you most need it. And Snoopa is going to start eating up that metal. Yeah, I mean, I think if we just go for 15 lightning tanks right here, we win this entire push completely. There's no defenses on the back of this. In fact, there's no production whatsoever for Hellshound here on the back of this. Yeah, T2 Lab is going to go down here as those Bulls decide to just jump on top of it. Lovely, lovely connection right there, and the entire southern side of the blue team has crumbled here. It's a race against the clock. The northern side has fallen now, and yeah, the Link as well as the Tom Bombolin, two of my favorite characters from vastly different series across the nerdiverse. Going to be pushing in tandem right here. The medium tanks, definitely an excellent source of dietary fiber as well as HP here. Going to be tanking for those the actual Quakers in the backline. The Quakers are different, important to distinguish from the Mauser because they do fire a little bit slower and hit a little bit harder than the Mauser these days. Didn't used to be the case, but that's one of the recent changes, recent in parentheses and, you know, with plenty of asterisks and whatnot. For what it's worth, though, there's a lot of medium tanks and even some heavy tanks now for Zeeberg up on the northern side. It'll be difficult to push through there, unlike on the southern side here, where there's absolutely nothing to stop this. We have two welders out here to stop the push of T2 vehicles as well as T1 bots. I just don't see how the green commander is going to be able to hold all this. There's just too much metal on the field at this point. Each of these bulls 950 metal, so basically 4,000, 5,000 metal here coming out for the red player versus the 300 per welder here. The math just doesn't quite add up, and just like that, down goes the entire production base over here. All of it handed over to Hellshound, I suppose, as the lime green commander, the neon green commander, will tap out of this game. But there's not much else that can be done here. Shadow Ninja going for an Aphis right now. Watching his friends quite literally burn on his doorstep and decides to close the door and go for an advanced fusion reactor. Fair enough, though. It's not like the air player really has much they can put down on the line here, aside from a rapid onset T3 transition, or maybe a rapid onset T2 deployment as well could work. But either way, so much damage coming through over here. Likewise, up on the northern side, looks like another base has been eliminated here for the Hot Pink Commander, Kojiba. Still has a little outpost up on this northern section. Love that we're hanging in there, fighting to the very last right here. But unfortunately for the red team, this northern side is looking pretty brutal. Now, those Fiends are putting in work. It's a lot of firepower, no pun intended. Yeah, Quaker actually forced off the front line right there. Okay, you know what? That red team does appear to be pushing back on that side. There's not really anything to continue that push. There's not a lot of sustain left anymore. You need sumos, you need welders, you need anything to keep those up and alive here. Not going to be the case, though. Advanced fusion reactor gets self-destructed in the backline here to try and take down that one bull. It's a fairly inefficient trade, Aphis to bull wise. About 9,000 metal to about 1,000. Closer to 10,000 metal, actually. More and more units streaming through over here. So the blue team focused very heavily on this push up here, but now that that push has petered out, there's really only one option, is to go defend down on the southern side. Unfortunately, that means that all of the pressure is removed from the northern side, of course, meaning that the red team can apply pressure back over there. Sort of a complicated mix back and forth, but all you really need to know is that this many bulls beats that many heavy tanks, and those bulls are damn close to the core heart of production right here for Fiddler at 112. Well, I say that, it's a significant portion of the economy. It's not all of the production, though. The production mainly is over here in the middle of the map right now. Either way, though, with those Fiends coming out, it's going to be really difficult to get past their firewall, as well as the bulls firing from the backline here. Bulls really the pinnacle of heavy hitters. They hit hard and they don't stop to ask questions. They just keep hitting. Don't wonder if maybe sneaking a couple of these units around the side into the back over here wouldn't be the worst idea. Pardon my terribly drawn arrow over there, but you get the idea. Fighters going across too. Bombing run wouldn't be the end of the world right now. You know what? A lot of this is just T1 defenses. It is menacing T1 defense, for what it's worth. There's some heavy laser towers mixed in here. There's a lot of light laser towers. It's not comfortable to push through that. It'd be much more efficient to besiege this position, but still, not like it's exactly threatening either as soon as you're into T2, and especially not once you're into T3. Ooh, Snoopus Commander very far forward here. What are we doing? Yeah, that commander just wandered just a little bit too far forward. I appreciate that we're pulling it back here. The bull line is looking fabulous, though. All but one of these are completely healthy here. Going to be extremely, extremely durable. Don't want to take too many hits from that Banisher, that's for sure. Ticks will get mopped up over here as well. That's always nice. Flamethrower, flamethrower turret, as well as the twin guards over here doing an excellent job of keeping a whole lot of that clean. This is the sign of the end, though. The Sheldon have now rerouted in this direction. Gonna start besieging the production facility for Fiddler, who's just fighting on too many fronts all over the place all at once. And yeah, just like that, the Cyan Commander will take a whole bunch of damage to the production center. A bunch of the build power goes down. Sheldon are being pounced upon by a bunch of these Fiends, so that always feels nice. But man, the Sheldon, if there's ever a siege unit that'd be capable of fighting an assault fight, it's gotta be the Sheldon. Just like that, the blue team decides that too much pressure has been bestowed upon them, and the red team manages to clasp out a victory, clutch a victory in this game of Beyond All Reason. Sure hope you enjoyed this one, and if you'd like to see more videos just like this, or more Beyond All Reason casts, you can always hit that subscribe button down below. Always happy to have new members, as I said earlier on in the video, and I will see you in the very next one. See you later, folks.